Greetings and welcome to the Cancer Interviews podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Morton. You know, one's cancer journey doesn't end once it appears they have survived cancer. Our guest on this segment not only survived colorectal cancer, he made sure cancer would not get in the way of his pursuit of happiness. He is Dan Drydock Shockley of Galt, California, who will share with you his cancer story and how he manages to live life to the fullest. So now let's get started. And Dan, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Hey, Bruce, how you doing? Thank you very much for the opportunity to allow me to share my journey on your platform. This is quite an honor.
Well, I have to ask you, not a whole lot of people walk around with a nickname of Drydock. How did you get your nickname?
Well, that's an interesting story. My Navy career, which lasted 22 wonderful years, I was assigned to 7 different ships, and 2 of those ships, during my assignment on those 2 ships, we spent at least 12 to 14 months in dry dock, and that just seemed to be a nickname that appeared to be fitting to me, to my journey, because now I'm not on the ocean anymore. I'm a landlubber, so I look at myself as I'm in a permanent dry dock.
And for one who is serving in the Navy, and thank you for your service, how is serving in the Navy different when you're on dry dock?
Well, you still have your duties and responsibilities, but you know, sailors, we're meant to be on ships, and ships are meant to be at sea. But we do have to put ships in dry dock to do a lot of renovations and upgrades of different types of equipment, and so you know, it's downtime for us, but it's very busy for us. So very long hours. Of course, being at sea, at very long hours as well. But it's a different atmosphere, different mindset.
Okay, now one thing we like to do with our guests when we begin each interview is find out a little bit more about them. We know that you've served in the Navy, but we'd like to know where you grew up, how you got into the service, maybe what you're doing in addition to being in the Navy, and what you like to do for your leisure time, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Well, I was born in suburbs of Philadelphia back in 1960. My dad worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad, and through the years, of course, they merged to become Penn Central and then Conrail. And every time they merged, my dad ended up getting a promotion. He worked in the auditing department, and he was the chief investigator of the auditing department. So his responsibility was to check every train station between Philly and Chicago. And of course, yeah, we moved from the Philly area to Chicago suburbs. 4 years later, we moved back to the Delaware. And then another 4 years passed. We moved back to the Chicago area when I ended up graduating high school in Illinois. And 2 years later, I joined the Navy. I love to travel in the eastern part of the U.S. And I always had a fascination of the ocean or oceans. You know, growing up, we did projects in school pertaining to studying the explorers. And I always thought it'd be kind of neat to, you know, what it would be like to be out on the ocean, you know, the cross paths where these explorers used to travel, you know, to uncharted territories. And so it's just that was a thought that I had, and it actually came to fruition when I got to join the Navy. And actually my first ship was home ported in Charleston, South Carolina, and our area of responsibility was the Caribbean. So rough duty that was, and we would travel down to the Caribbean for the first 3 years I was on the ship. And we hit Guantanamo Bay, Jamaica, Bahamas, and lots of ports in Florida. But I enjoy just, you know, being around the water at that time, and enjoying listening to music, and just, you know, enjoying life, learning the customs, cultures, and courtesies of the different ports that we pulled into. And through my career, I had the opportunity to visit 22 different countries. So that's a lot of different cultures to take in. And I love the food from the different cultures. But that's just a little bit of my background.
Now, if one wants to serve their country, obviously they have a number of options. You chose the Navy. Looking back, are you glad that the Navy is the branch of the service that you chose?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was the best, one of the best decisions I've made. And like I said, I just wanted to learn a skill set and be close to the water and going to, if I've always dreamt of what it'd be like to make a port visit. And, through my 22-year career, I made a lot of port visits.
Is there one port that stands out as your favorite?
Wow, that's a good question. My first port was down in Jamaica, Ocho Rios, Jamaica. That was amazing. We also hit Port Antonio, Jamaica, about a year later, and been to Singapore on a different ships. Where else we've been so many different places. So I think Singapore and Jamaica would be probably two of my favorites. Thailand, of course, ranks up there. Once again, it's learning the customs and cultures and courtesies and enjoying the food. So that's what I look for when I go to a port. But I guess between Thailand, Singapore, and Jamaica, those three rank up there pretty high.
All right, now let's move on to what led to your cancer journey. I'm guessing that for the bulk or all of your naval career, you were in pretty good health, but at what point did you notice that something might not be right?
Well, that's a very good question, Bruce. When I retired from the Navy, I go through annual checkups with the Veterans Healthcare System, and they suggested when I turned 50, it'd be a good idea to have a colonoscopy. And I'd known that for the previous couple decades. So I said, sure, no problem. Now, since I go through these annual checkups, right before I turned 50, I had my annual checkup, and we were scheduling my colonoscopy, which would take place a few months later. And we noticed that the 12-month checkup prior, I had a 14-pound unexpected weight loss. So my GI doctor and primary care doctor thought that it would be a good idea to not only do a colonoscopy, but to do an EGD to see if there's any underlying issues, which would lead to why I had a 14-pound unexpected weight loss.
And what were the results of that test?
Well, the results revealed 100 polyps embedded throughout my colon, rectum, and anus. One of those polyps happened to be a large mass creating a 80% blockage in my ascending colon. Now, based on those results, and keep in mind, I didn't have any symptoms, no side effects, no family history. So I was immediately referred to a certified genetic counselor at Tripler Army Medical Center there in Hawaii. And they wanted to do a germline DNA test to rule out a mutation referred to as Familial Adenomatous Polyposis. FAP is the acronym. So I sat down with a certified genetic counselor and a colorectal surgeon. We discussed the mutation they thought I had, the type of surgery I would require, which would be to remove my colon, rectum, and anus if the results came back confirming I had the mutation, and then also learn about living with a permanent ostomy. So being the military mindset that I had, I broke it down into 3 phases. And I wanted to read about the mutation, read about the type of surgery, and then read about life after surgery as an ostomy. Now, the results were not going to be expected to come back for about 3 weeks. The DNA samples had to be sent to a molecular oncology lab in Pasadena, California, because that's the closest lab that could facilitate the type of test that would determine what mutation I had. Now, in the meantime, I was given resources to read about the mutation and read about the type of surgery. And it was 6 weeks later that the results came back, and I was called in to see my genetic counselor and my colorectal surgeon, and they let me know that the results came back that I had a mutation. However, it wasn't the one I thought that I had. It's the one more rare, which is referred to as attenuated FAP. Now, just in layman's terms, the difference, attenuated FAP will have a later onset in life. It's between 50 and 55 years old is the time when, if you were to be diagnosed with attenuated FAP, that's the timeline. FAP has an earlier onset. I know individuals who have FAP that were diagnosed before they were even 9 years old.
So it sounds like you were approaching this whole situation in kind of a proactive way, obviously in terms of obtaining more intel about it. But once you were confronted with this, did you have an option, Dan? Did you have to be proactive, or could you wait a bit before being proactive?
Well, I learned in my military time, plan for the worst and hope for the best. Now, the results that confirm the attenuated FAP, it's in the best practice of medicine to have a total proctocolectomy with an ileostomy surgery, because any of those 100 polyps left unattended have a 100% chance of developing the colon cancer. So based on the research that had been conducted in the previous decades by Dr. Henry T. Lynch, he's the founding father of hereditary cancer research. He's also the doctor who's credited with the discovery of attenuated FAP. And my genetic counselor and colorectal surgeon were colleagues of Dr. Lynch at the time. Among other things, he was the director of preventive medicine at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. So he was tracking my journey once he heard that I was diagnosed with AFAP.
We're talking with Dan Drydock Shockley of Galt, California. And if you like what you hear in this segment, we invite you to subscribe to our podcast by checking the links below. Once there, you will see a bell icon, and if you click on that, we will notify you when we post a new interview. So, Dan, what was the next step for you?
Well, since I already read about the mutation and what the results confirmed, and it was being in the best practice of medicine to have the surgery, I elected to have the surgery. Now, my surgeon looked at me and he goes, Dan, I thought that's what you're going to say. I've already booked your surgery from 2 weeks from today. So I went in for the surgery. It was a 6-hour surgery. I ended up having a 9-inch incision in my abdominal area midline with 35 staples. Where my anus was, I had 13 staples back there. And I was inpatient for 12 days at Tripler Army Medical Center in Hawaii. And as soon as the next day after my surgery, I started my advocacy opportunities and, of course, learning how to be an ostomate for the rest of my life. So I wanted to learn as much as I could. And by the way, my mindset throughout this whole process was I tend not to think about things I'm unable to control. What I can control is my positive attitude. And after 5 decades on God's green earth, why change now? And my other mindset was worrying is not the cause of my condition. Therefore, worrying is not going to make it go away. Adapt, improvise, and overcome.
Okay, but you still had a great deal to overcome, and physically your life was altered in a big way. If you would describe what those alterations were like and what kind of adjustments you had to make.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, great questions. The alteration was I no longer had a colon, rectum, and anus, and I'm outfitted with a permanent ostomy. And for those not familiar with an ostomy, since I don't have a colon, rectum, and anus, the end of my small intestine is surgically adhered to my abdominal area below my belt line on my right-hand side of my abdominal area. And I have a prosthetic device, which is an ostomy pouching system that requires to be, the pouch requires to be emptied numerous times during the day, and an appliance that adheres to my abdominal area. That can be replaced anywhere from 3 to 4 days at a time. The other thing I have to think about, among other things, is what type of activities I'd be involved with, because having an ostomy, it's interesting. There's different types of ostomies. There's some that are temporary, some that are permanent. There are some that were done planned, and there were some that were performed under emergency circumstances. Now, mine was planned, and I knew exactly what to expect. I just didn't know how my body was going to feel. However, I was able to mentally prepare myself. So once I became an ostomy, and I continued just to had, of course, build my endurance back up, because having a major surgery like that at 51 years old, that takes a lot out of you. And it wiped me out for several weeks. I mean, I was on short-term disability for 9 weeks. So I was able to go back to my jobs. I had 2 full-time jobs, and I went about, to this day, I go about my life as if nothing happened. And it's all part of it all starts with the mental preparation. So I've accepted this, like I said, from the onset. I did make an acronym for the word ADAPT, since I had to adapt to a lifestyle, having a permanent ostomy. And my acronym for the word ADAPT is attitude determines the ability for a positive transformation. And that's what I try to do every day.
Dan, I think you've already answered this question, but even if you have, I would still like you to elaborate a bit. We've already heard about your time of service has had influences on the way you went about things during your service life and after. But what about your cancer journey? To what degree has your military service shaped and crafted the way you approach your cancer journey?
Well, that's an excellent question. I have to say that my military experience has afforded me the opportunity to be where I'm at today with a positive attitude. In the military, we have to overcome personal and professional challenges and overcome adversity each step of the way. And after 22 years in the, traveling the world in the Navy, I've overcome a lot of adversity. So, it really helped me out so much mentally to, once I was diagnosed and had the surgery and recovering from the surgery, to just, keep plugging away. And I have a mantra, which is always forge ahead with a purpose. And my mantra is actually a positive spin on the diagnosis of AFAP, because if you take the first letters of always forge ahead with a purpose and you spell it spells AFAP. And I take a negative, turn into a positive. So I feel that my military experience has had a major impact on my ability to adapt and improvise and overcome this diagnosis of not only a hereditary colon cancer syndrome, however, being a permanent ostomy.
Now, the ostomy piece from this is not a pleasant piece for it. Is this something you can maintain yourself, or do you have to have some sort of caregiver take care of the ostomy?
Bruce, I've been self-sufficient from several days after I was in the hospital. My wound and ostomy nurse, Sarah Tripler, she equipped me to be self-sufficient. I wanted to be self-sufficient. So, and I enjoy it. I honestly do, because the other thing too is with ostomies, we're trying to silence the stigma. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be embarrassed about to have an ostomy, whether it's permanent or temporary, whether it's planned or emergency. And I like to be an advocate to share my journey, to be a source of inspiration and encouragement for those who hear it or read about it. And that's not just being with an ostomy, but it's being diagnosed with a hereditary colon cancer syndrome.
Now, we talked about how the military, in a direct or indirect way, has been a positive presence in your cancer journey, a source of support. I want to ask you about another source of support, an organization that both of us know, although I'm guessing you know it a lot better than I do, and that is the Louisville, Kentucky-based Colon Cancer Prevention Project. How has that figured into your cancer journey? And if you would, tell us a little bit about the work they do.
Well, it's thank you. It's an honor to be able to come alongside and actually be part of the project, as we call it. It was founded by Dr. Whitney Jones, and he's a GI doctor, and we've been collaborating for probably the last year, and he is very in tune with what I have, and I share my advocacy opportunities with him. But I'm not just an advocate nationally, I'm an advocate internationally on both the colon cancer, the rare disease, and ostomy community platforms. So I have the opportunity to share with him my advocacy opportunities. Now, the main piece that I have with the project, I am looking to get the 4th week of March designated as Hereditary Colon Cancer Awareness Week. Now, there is no legislative jurisdiction for designating the last week of March as HCC Awareness Week. So I'm come alongside with Dr. Jones, and we're going to reach out to get, hopefully get legislative jurisdiction. Now, ultimately, what I'd like to do is have a Senate resolution approved designating the last week of March as HCC Awareness Week, and this would be nationally, is to include the U.S. territories of Guam, American Samoa, and Puerto Rico. So it would be a permanent resolution indefinitely designating the 4th week of March as HCC Awareness Week. So Dr. Jones is involved with a lot of other things with the project. That project it was founded 17 years ago, and they're going strong. Even though I'm out here in California, digitally and virtually, we stay connected through through our opportunities. And it's just amazing to have this opportunity. There's very little information out there about hereditary colon cancer syndromes. And of the 7 syndromes, AFAP is the rarest of them all. It's estimated to impact less than 0.03% of the global population.
And by the way, as far as the project is concerned, it has a very easy web address to remember. And I know this from an earlier interview I did with the aforementioned Dr. Jones. And that very simply, and it'll be easy for you to remember too, it's just kickingbutt.org. Remember that. And if you need any sort of information from the Colon Cancer Prevention Project, that's the place to go, kickingbutt.org. Now, Dan, I want to get to, after we've talked about some unpleasant items connected to your cancer journey, I want to shift gears here and get to some pleasant items, because as I've learned a little bit about you, I have learned that you still find ways to enjoy life. You still find ways to have fun despite being on a cancer journey. And one of them is you're taking a shot at virtual golf. If you would, tell us about that.
Wow. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I've been collaborating with numerous individuals and organizations through the years, not only with ostomy, but with colon cancer related concerns. And there was an invitation I received in December from Martha Raymond. Now, she's a founder of the Raymond Foundation, which is a colon cancer project. And we've known each other digitally since probably a good 8 years now. So I got an invitation from her to be virtually paired with a PGA champion during the Cologuard Classic golf tournament, which took place in Tucson, Arizona, the week of the 21st of February. Now, a backstory on this, no pun intended. the rare disease day is the last day of February, which is this year be 28 February. Now, the golf tournament took place the 26th to the 28th of February. So how cool it was, not only that since I have a hereditary cancer, colon cancer syndrome, it's also a rare disease. And March, of course, is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. So how cool it was not only to be selected or invited to be virtually paired, they paired me with Sacramento native Kevin Sutherland, a PGA champion. And he won the tournament. He won the tournament on the last day, on the back nine. He ended up the last two holes. He ended up birdieing them. The leader at the time, he was the leader throughout the whole tournament up until the last two holes, and then Kevin just took it over, and he sent me a 10-second video, thanking me that I was paired with him and thanking me for my service, and he's going to send me the ball cap he wore. He autographed it, and there's a ribbon on that with my name on it. And then they're also going to send me a photograph during the tournament. All 81 of the golfers were paired virtually with a colon cancer survivor or caregiver, and they held a sign up that said, "I stand up for cancer," and then it had your name on it. So they took a picture of that. And so that's in the mail to me. I'll get that any day now. So that was quite an honor. I had never had any thing like that happen before, and it was just so exciting. And it was on the Golf Channel, the Golf Network. So the 3 days of the tournament were actually shown globally. So I watched every minute of it. It was just so exciting.
Well, he had a good partner. Now let's talk about one other activity you've been in. You've taken part in sort of an open mic activity, which also sounds like a great deal of fun. If you could tell us something about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a San Antonio-based Curtain Up Cancer Foundation, and what they do is they take a look at the cancer community, and what they try to do is they have workshops every quarter, and you'll have 4, 5, 6 participants that are either a caregiver or a cancer survivor, and they set them down with professional writers to write your own story. So we do it virtually now. I actually attended one of their production performances back in 2018. I was actually living in San Antonio area. Now, annually what they do is they have a production called The Six, and they take 6 of their participants through that year, and they have a performance, and they'll have a professional dancers and choreographers and musicians doing a presentation on your behalf. Now, the individuals are there, the participants are there wearing a sash, and you get to talk to them. So I attended one of them in person. So I kept in communication with them once I left, because I'm out here in California because my mutation requires upcoming surgery at Stanford University. So I kept in touch with them. They invited me to be part of their workshop. We just completed it the 21st and the 22nd of February. And then the following week, since we already had our story, we put our story together, we videoed it, and then they aired it on a open mic night. And I'm not sure where we're going to go with it from here, whether I get selected to be one of the 6 this year for a presentation, but it's a lot of fun. What you do is you have the ultimate goal is to have a 3 to 5 minute presentation where you would share your cancer journey. And they give you some points to think about as you write your story. You write it in a paragraph at a time, and you do your presentation. They try to get you to think outside the box. And, what's really cool is the fact that I'm pretty diverse, not just with my advocacy opportunities, but just with my life's experiences. So it was a lot of fun. It honestly was a lot of fun. and I got to share some really interesting and fun things that how I was able to overcome, this adverse situation. But I look at what I have as a challenge, not as an obstacle. So it's just another avenue, another platform to share, my journey. I kind of think of it like kind of like the salt of the earth. Okay, and I say that because there's an old cliche that I remember hearing growing up, and that is, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Well, a couple decades ago, I heard the flip side, that there is a way that you can influence the horse to drink by making it thirsty, by feeding it salt on the way. So my point is, my hopes are that my journey serves as a source of salt that whoever reads or hears about it makes them thirsty. So when it's time for them to have screening, medical screening, that they have a discussion with their family members and their doctors to schedule that screening. Don't put it off. So, I mean, that's the way I look. I take a negative, turn it into a positive.
Okay, Dan, we're going to wrap things up now, and we always like to start our interviews off from sort of the same place, and we like to end in the same way. So I'm going to throw this question out at you, even though I'm pretty sure your answer is going to include some of the things you've already said. But if you had a chance to have a private audience with someone who has just been diagnosed with colorectal cancer, or someone who's learned that they're a candidate for colorectal cancer, they haven't been diagnosed, but they know there's a possibility that could happen. If you had a private audience with a person in that position, what would you tell them?
Well, the first thing I would say is maintain a positive attitude. And, positive attitude to me means everything. Attitude is permanent. Mood is temporary. We can wake up in a bad mood. However, having a positive attitude, we're going to overcome that bad mood. So maintain a positive attitude, because that's what afforded me the opportunity to overcome adversity. The other thing that I look at is the word faith, and just faith in general. What is faith? Having hope in something we're unable to see. The example, you look out the window, you see the tree branches swaying in the breeze. We're unable to see the breeze, however, we see the effect of the breeze. So faith is having hope in something we're unable to see. I took the word faith and I broke it down into full assurance influenced through hope. So my positive attitude had a direct impact on my strong faith, which had an impact on my ability to adapt to life as a permanent ostomate with a cancer syndrome. And I took the word adapt, as we know, as you've heard before, attitude determines the ability for a positive transformation. So my positive attitude, strong faith, ability to adapt to life as an ostomate had a direct impact on my purpose. And my purpose is to educate the world about my mutation in hopes of continuing the legacy of Dr. Henry T. Lynch and the importance of early detection. And, I have a mantra, always forge ahead with a purpose. So, my positive attitude, my strong faith, my ability to adapt to life as an ostomate, and my purpose in life, I'm forging ahead with a purpose, and that's to be a source of inspiration and encouragement for those who hear my story or read about it, and hope that they can overcome their adversity that they're challenging.
Dan, thanks very much. That's been a tremendous story with some wonderful ingredients: perseverance, faith, positive attitude, being proactive, so many things for somebody to rely on if they find themselves in a position in which they might one day be in your position. So, Dan, thanks very much for talking with us. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Bruce, thank you very much for the opportunity.
And that's going to wrap up this segment of Cancer Interviews. We hope that what you heard can aid your cancer journey or the cancer journey for a loved one. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information, please visit us online at cancerinterviews.com. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you back here again next time on the Cancer Interviews Podcast.